From Lupin as a Dog Productions, it's Chef at Home 7.0 Apple Coffee Cake with toasted cashews and caramelized apple. So satisfying. Now I'm going to cream together the butter and the 2 sugars. It's important to use room temperature or softer butter. Otherwise, creaming by hand can take a really long time. So now I've taken 2 large eggs and I'm whisking them as if I was going to make scrambled eggs. I'm going to add about half of that at a time. And it's important to fully incorporate the egg in with the creamed butter and sugars. Take your time doing this. Why? Because you're incorporating fats and egg. Egg is primarily water. Water does not want to be incorporated with fats. So what you're creating now is basically a suspension. Now the original recipe that I've adapted for this video called for sour cream. I'm substituting whole milk Greek-style yogurt. Why? Well, because it's healthier. Whole milk Greek-style yogurt has nearly twice the protein as sour cream and a fifth of the calories, with less than half of the sugars that you would get from sour cream. What makes this recipe even more interesting is the nuts. The original recipe calls for walnuts. I'm using whole, and that thing is loud, raw cashews. It's important to use, oh, for crying out loud. Now for the star of this recipe, Honey Crisp apples. Anybody who's taken a culinary class knows. First thing you need to do is make that round food flat. Flat foods are safe. Round foods, scary. I'm going to take all the edible apple off of the core with just 4 knife cuts. Once I've got my usable apple, now I'm going to do a small dice. Anybody remember what that knife cut is called? Okay, so you can see that some of the apples have started to brown up from the searing. And when I say searing, in this case, what we're doing is causing the sugars in the apple to caramelize. That's the browning. That caramelized apple is going to be delicious. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to talk over this thing anymore. Start the mixture when it's more wet than dry with a whisk. I'm not sure why I wander out of the frame right there, or put the whisk back in, because as we can plainly see, as our batter begins to get a little drier and a little tighter, that whisk isn't going to work at all. Now, having incorporated all of the dry ingredients into the wet, what you're looking for is a smooth, spreadable batter. That's not happening here. And the more I mix it, the more I'm activating the glutens. I'm going to go back to the yogurt and try and get the batter to loosen up a little bit so I can spread it. At this point, I've incorporated at least another half cup of yogurt into my batter. Why was it so dry and tight to start with? It could have been the flour I chose to use. There's lots of different flours. And now my favorite tool for getting batter out of a bowl and into a dish. The ice cream scoop. The batter's going in 2 layers. Put about half of it into your dish. And then grab that crumb topping. Remember the nuts, the sugars, the butter? Spread the batter evenly, edge to edge, and then lay in a layer of the crumb topping. Okay, you can see I've got the bottom layer in. If I could go back in time, I would have pressed that crumb topping down into the batter. Because in a minute, when I've got the rest of the batter in the dish, I'm going to try and spread it. And some of that crumb tries to work its way back up to the top. So before you put in the top of the batter, press that crumb down into the bottom. All right, it's been in the oven for about 40 minutes. I'm going to take a bamboo skewer. Check for the crumb. Is it dry? Is it sticky? It's still a little wet. It's hard to see.